So everyone, welcome to the 17th or maybe 18th Gyllengran Fencing Camp and the first class, which will be about spears in the SCA. I hope everybody can hear me, okay? And if someone don't know me, I'm Master Fardäng from the Shire of Gyllengran, and as my sidekick at the moment, I have the King of Drachenwald.
ÄrikR, also a Master of Defense.
Yeah, and the plan for this class is to go through spear. I will be lots of talking, of course, but I have some parts in the end that you can stand up and start practicing, and watch out for your furniture and your lamps and other people around you when you do that. I will talk a little bit of the history of spear, historical use. I will talk a little bit of the use in SCA, what the rules allows and don't allow. And then in the end, will go through one of my favorite manuals for spear use, Fiore, which is one of my favorite manuals. Anyway, but he has lots of interesting things to say about spears. And we'll show you the basic of that and give you some practice tips. And if we have time, we'll talk a little bit in the end about spear versus rapier and spear versus dagger and stuff like that, if we have the time. And as I said before, please ask questions. I will be a little bit away from the screen, so if you type it, I might not see it, so someone can shout it out to us. And we will try to be as clear as you can, but please ask. And I will ask your forgiveness if I mangle the English language or the Italian language too much. The Italian I will mangle a lot. So, spear. The first question we have to ask ourselves is, what is a spear? It's like, what is a spear? What is a sword? Well, basically, a spear is, I take some sharp metal piece. This lovely piece, by the way, is made of the Honorable Lord Kelder of Rengada. And I put it on a stick. We have many different names of spear and spear-like objects. You can call it a spear, you can call it a lance, a pike, a partisan. Slightly difference in between them, but it's basically the same thing. It's a pole weapon made for stabbing. It can be taller, extremely tall. If you look at historical resources, there are many different types of weapons that are used basically the same, a slightly difference in between them. But for this class, I will use the word spear for everything that's a lance, that's a partisan, pike. That's basically a spear. And if you look at the manuals, they have different names for them, but they use it basically the same when you go through the basics of them. And this is a basic class for it. And probably the spear, which is a different name, is probably the most common weapon throughout history until modern times. We have, of course, the Stone Age spears used for hunting and also killing people. And we look at all the kinds of armor they have throughout history. We have the Greek hoplite armors, you know, Thermopylae, all the stuff, had extremely long spears. The Roman legionnaires have spears, two types most of the times. Of course, the Vikings, if you look at Viking and Dark Ages burial mounds from Nordic countries, most of the times it's a couple of spears there that are used for war. And we have the Scottish, I'm not sure the pronunciation, Skiltron formation, they use long pikes. Of course, the landscape pikes. And if we go slightly outside SCA period, we have the Swedish Empire times, with the Sweden had a great empire. And the Swedish army the infantry was also based around pikes. The Caroliner army, late empire times, 1/3 of the infantry in every regiment had a pike or spear. So in war, spear is very, very common. I would say probably the most common weapon as a main weapon, at least, and that is used in most times. And then some people say, oh, this is a war weapon. It's only used for war, so why we do it in fencing? Well, we have melee in fencing, of course, not the big wars that come up. But also, if we look at historical resources, the spear is used used in duels, many types of duels. We have description duels that are where spear used. Sometimes it's the first weapon of 3 or something like that. We start with the spear and then pick up another weapon and another weapon. When we have the armored duels, we also have unarmored duels that are fought with spear as main weapon. And we look at the manuals that describe both armored and unarmored combat. We also have spear. As I mentioned before, we have it in Fiore, we have it in Marosso, it's another excellent manual if you want to look at spear use, and many others. So spear is a very common weapon, both in war and more civil way of killing people. But in SCA, spear is fairly new, fairly uncommon weapon, so forth. But it's starting to change. The new rules in society with the spears have been in work. Well, they were presented just before the corona, said not probably used that much. The new rules for Drachenwald are on the way. Some people are here in the meeting was with me and a couple of discussions about the new rules. So they are on the way. It's just slight correction of language or something like that. But what the new rule says that a spear in SCA should be a rubber-headed, like this one, for example, should have a rubber head. There are different kinds of, the king and me have the same kind of head at the moment. A rubber head, you have longer, short, but it should be a rubber head. Many manufacturers have them. And you must, at the moment, have a rattan stick. The older kind of spear in SCA with the metal, when it basically had a rapier blade on it, you can use other kinds of pole. You can have hardwood and stuff like that. But now you have to have rubber head and a rattan stick. The explanation of that, well, I'm not sure actually, but I think maybe since rattan is a little bit flexible, so it's not get that hard hits. But if someone wants to put up experiments with other kinds of sticks for that, I will take part of that to see if you can use it. So rubber, rattan, and it can be up to 9 feet long. This is 8 feet, I think, around 8 feet. Well, I can't see it from the camera. It's quite long. 9 feet is 2.75 centimeters, I think. And it's in SCA only used for thrusting, no cutting of any kind. But you can use it also for simulated face thrusts, which we'll come back to later. But in cut and thrust, we have had for many years the simulated face thrust with any hard objects, basically.
Not thrust.
Simulated face strikes. Sorry, strike. Thank you. So, which we also can use the spear for simulated face strikes. So I don't really strike, but I simulate it, like with the back of the spear. Don't really hit him in the face. And we'll come back to that later, but because this is a very period way of using it. Because in period, many of the historical spears had some kind of end cap in metal. And that was for using in fighting. Fiore says a true spear have a metal ending, metal cap at the end. So in SCA now, the metal spears that we have used before are forbidden, but now we have rubber spears instead. And I know rubber is not that pretty to look at, but actually we have used them for many years now. And we find them very friendly. They're really, really nice. It's not that hard hits and stuff like that. And of course, there's something in the rules about how you should fix it to the pole. You have to tight fit, glue it, stuff like that. But you can check out the rules. If someone wants to ask me afterwards how you build your own spear, just ask me. Oh, by the way, you have to mark the end of the tip as well with some contrasting color. Hard to see in the camera. I only have a red fabric here, but yeah, just tape it. Yep. So that's what the rule says about spear. So it's not that much different from other kinds of weapon. And if you just want to pick up a spear and use it, most of you are used to use rapier. If you choose to use it as a basic rapier, you will probably be a decent spear fighter after you use it a couple of times. You just get used to the longer reach and stuff like that. Because as with a rapier, this long two-handed rapier is very important to remember things like changing the side, what's called cavazione, take control of the opponent's weapon, stringiere, things like that, or be in a strong position, push the other opponent's weapons to the side. All that are excellent things to do with a spear as well. And as with every kind of weapon, footwork is the basic of everything you do in fighting. If you have a good footwork, the rest is, well, you can't ignore the rest, but a good footwork are the basics of it all. So, just going on. The thrust is the only legal attack, as I said, except simulated face strike. So it's basically just stretch out the spear. But this is a longer weapon. You use two hands. So a couple of different things to remember.
We have a question here in the chat. Is not black rubber contrasting?
Yeah, but the rule says contrasting to the head and the rattan as well.
I think the reasoning behind that is so you can see if it starts coming up.
Yeah, that's the explanation I get as well. That's what the rule says. Yes, was that answer to the questions? Yeah. So just wrap some red tape or something around it, or silver or green or whatever you like. Red tape, that's another thing as well.
Red goes faster.
Red goes faster, but red tapes also the bureaucracy.
Yep.
Anyway, the thrusts. It's just poke the opponent, is dead. But you can say it's three basic kinds of thrust you use. First of all, of course, just hold my two hands at the spear and just stretch out. Oh, is dead. But also I can step in. With this is just like a rapier. Either you are so close you can just stretch out your arm, or most opponents don't allow you to step in without making things problematic for you. They have to take a step and thrust. But the third one, that's a little bit different since we have two-handed weapons, and that was forbidden with the metal ones, which was really stupid in my opinion. But that's my personal opinion. But now it's allowed to slide. This one. And of course, I can combine it with a step as well. So, but here is the difference, because this is a heavier weapon. It's very flexible, the rubber head and the rattan. So it's quite nice, it's quite flexible. The hits won't get that hard. But if I step in, especially those of you that are used to use a heavy fighting spear, when you have to use all your body sometimes, if I do that, I will probably be banned from the kingdom for a while at least. Because if I step in and take all my body mass behind it, this will really hurt. If you probably don't really get broken.
You won't break your opponent. What could happen if you get a hard hit to the head? You could damage the neck. That's in theory, that's what can happen. It's very unlikely, but it can happen. It can hurt because of the mass coming forward.
Yeah. So what we're saying, it's not that a big problem, but you have to be a little bit careful. So don't do any heavy fighting spear, all body mass behind thrust with them. You can even let go with the hand in the end. But you have to always be able to control the spear. So, but we have played with this spear for a couple of years now, and we do lots of stupid things. Lots of things like, this is probably not SCA legal, but we have to try it, see what's happened. And well, we get bruised, but nothing else. So be careful, but don't be afraid.
What we found was that if you do take a step, land first, then hit your opponent, because then your body stops. Stop moving your body before the spear hit your opponent. That way you stop the momentum of your body mass being transferred into the thrust.
So slightly off tempo. It's not perfectly. If you were in a fight for life and death, it's not the best thing to do. But if you want to be friends, sit down, take a beer with your opponent, or wine, or water, or whatever you like, take a little bit easy. And also, actually, the sliding thing is an excellent thing to control how hard you hit. Because when I slide, I can stop. And also I can break the movement a little bit. So it's quite easy. So, but that's basically, it's a two-handed rapier. Poke your opponent. But how do you train that kind of thrust? So you have the precisions, the timing, all things like that. Well, how do you train with your rapier? I will show you two ways to train this. One, you need a friend. The other one you can do alone. So if I will be the friend that will get hit, this is an exercise. This is an exercise some of you probably have seen as well when you use rapier. This is excellent when you're starting to get to know this new weapon. So take a friend. Well, I would recommend having a mask for this exercise when you start to speed it up. But now we do it slowly. I trust this person. One with spear, the other one per hand. Put your hands here. You can start just standing still. When I show my hand, try to hit it. After a while, I can start playing with the distance. So I have a little bit further or further back. I just realized I don't wear a cap at the moment. And after that, I can start moving around in the room a little bit. And of course, if I'm experienced training companion, I can check his footwork, his field work at the same time. This way, he can practice his precisions, his targeting. I can feel how hard he's hitting. Is it too hard? Is it too light? Well, as long as his hit is not too light, but do I really feel the hit? Sometimes people tend to stop before the hit. I can check things like that.
And so this is a lot of communication. And what could happen if you take it too slow, that it gets more of a push than an actual thrust. But it's communication, it's practice. And we would recommend doing this quite a lot until you get 9 thrusts out of 10 at least being with a good calibration before speeding it up or start sparring.
Yeah. And as I said, this was just a slow. We did it fairly slow. You can speed it up until basically full speed. If you can do it full speed, as I said, 9 out of 10, then it's okay. Because you should be able to control the spears. You don't hurt your opponent when you are wearing normal SCA fencing garb. No extra armor at all. The other way you can practice this one is if you don't have a friend. Of course, you can use your PEL, but if you have a PEL, and I hope everyone has a PEL, PEL is probably your best friend.
Especially now.
Especially now, yeah. It's a quite boring friend. But other friend you can have is my favorite rapier training tool, the ball. Take every kind of ball you can find around the house and put string on it. This is a floorball ball, I think. And I fill it with, actually, I think it's leftover scrap metal from one of my armors that weighs down. You can use a tennis ball, whatever you find. Take an egg, put it up at the door frame, put up your ball. This actually pointed ball have a little bit of weight, because then you see when it starts moving, it can't be too light to just flopping around, but not too heavy. Because when I hit this ball, I know when I hit this ball to start moving a little bit, then it's a okay thrust. It's not too light, but it's not too hard as well. So just put it up and let's start playing with the spear. And you see it start moving as well, so it's really hard to hit. And you can start moving around, try the different kinds of attack with the sliding, with the stepping. So do 100 of those each every day, and you will be a decent spear fighter when this play ends. But that's what I recommend you to start with if you will want to start to practice spear. And of course, if you don't have a proper spear at home, you don't have a rubber head, you don't have the rattan. I know in some parts of our kingdom, rattan is really hard to get hold of. Other parts of kingdom is not a problem. You can just use a broomstick, whatever long pole you have, because that's what a spear is, a long pole. Of course, the rubber head slightly change the balance because it's a little bit top heavy, not much, but a little bit. But a long stick work as well. Oh, by the way, as I mentioned before, the armor you should use according to SCA rules are as normal.
Heavy rapier guard.
Heavy rapier guard, a gaucher, fencing jacket, or something like that. But I would recommend if you spear against spear that you have. Well, I don't do that most of the time, but I would recommend some kind of padded gloves, especially when you start. So, like some kind of lightly padded glove is a good idea, because you won't break each other's fingers when you smash the spear together, when you start sparring properly. I won't promise you, but it hasn't happened to us athletes. But you get your fingers hit several times. So some kind of light padded gloves can be recommended. It's not something you have to have according to rules, but I would recommend some kind of that.
And it happens when you try to parry the spear and you get your hand in between your own spear and your opponent's spear. It's like slamming a door over your fingers. It hurts a lot. And doing it over and over could accumulate to some kind of damage later on. Mostly it hurts a lot, and you don't want to be fencing for a while, which is bad.
Yeah, and you feel stupid because you parry with your hands, which is a stupid thing, but it happens sometimes. Oh, by the way, I see something. It's only basically put up. One of the people you can buy this rubber head from. This is bought from a company in France, but other company has the same rubber head. So that's the really basic of the spear in SCA use, and you can use it in melees, you can use it in tourneys, and when the new rules come, it will be a standard weapon. Before it was a non-standard weapon, which meant that someone can always say, no, I don't want to face a spear in a tourney or in a melee. When the new rules are get all the paperwork done, but in the SCA, as you know, they are legal and a standard weapon, but not yet in Russian one. But when all paperwork is done, it will be a standard weapon. So you can't say in a tourney, no, I don't want to face a spear. Well, you can always say it, and we fans are nice people, so we probably say, oh, then okay, I will switch another weapon. But according to rules, it is a standard weapon. And of course, if I arrange a tourney, I can say, no, I won't allow spear, or I won't allow soft parry, or whatever. But it will be a standard weapon. And in our experience, of course, it's a great weapon in melees, because I got a long reach. But on the other hand, I'm really bad fencer when people get up close and friendly. We'll probably get back to it later. So when you have a spear, you have, like in heavy fighting, you have all your skill points on long distance attack. You're great at that. You have no points in defense when people get in close. So a lonely spearman on the field in a melee no problem killing that if you know what to do.
That's when the spear person should have very good footwork and be very, very fast at running backwards.
Yeah. And in a tourney, yes, they are dangerous on the long distance, but it's not that good a weapon. We'll probably in the end, if I have time, go back to that. So it's a fun weapon, but it's not the kill all weapon, or not.
So
it's fun. It's addition. It's make difference in our game. But that was attack. The parries, we'll get back to a little bit later what Fiore says about parries. But the basic is don't be there. Footwork. Make the void, incartate, all this. Move your body around. Don't be where the attacks are. But of course also push the opponent's spear to the side. A different way. As I said, this is a basic class. We can't go into the specifics, the fine details on this class, because then I will be talking for this the whole day, which I would love to do, but we have all other kinds of interesting class on the way as well. So, you want to add something?
you're allowed to parry with your hands as per regular rapier. As long as you don't get hit with the tip in your hand, you can parry the spear to the side as well.
Yes.
Which is good.
So, if you don't have any questions, then I will go through the basic of what the Fiore manual says about spear use. And why I choose this, well, Fiore is one of my favorites of all kinds of manuals, because I think it's a very good manual. But also, he has a really clear, well-structured way of explaining spear work. Other manuals is also good, but I think this was one of the better ones. And Fiore, you can find it online at different places, but you can also buy lots of translation of his books. If you want to go a really pretty one, I would recommend this one. But this is the original text. Oh, showing in the. So you have to have a translation as well. And then you can, for example, buy this translation, which don't have the pictures for some stupid legal reasons. But you can find the translations and lots of pictures online as well. So, if you start with Fiore, I will show you the gauge, and then we show how they was used. But Fiore's description of spear is quite short. But he also says, use the spear as you use a sword. So everything you do with a spear is what you can do with a sword as well. So I will now just read up through in one of the verses of Fiore, because there are different verses, says about the spear, or the lance, this translation calls it. The extended lance which is used in hand, the more it extends, the less it deceives. 6 masters stands in guard with it, and with a step and a beat, the sudden strike, both from right side and from left for certain. The beat is made to the side and not up. This is important to remember. Always in these scribes, when you beat the opponent's spear away, it's from the side, not from below, from up, but from the side. And the beat wants to be 1 arm's length of the lance. So not too far away, just 1 arm's length. And whoever goes against it to make such a failure. I'm a noble weapon, lance by name. In the beginning of battle, I'm always used. And whoever watched me with my dashing pennant should be frightened with great dread. And if in the beginning I make my due, axe, sword, and dagger will I upset. And he only describes 6 masters, 6 guards, 1 attack, and 1 counter attack. That's not much. It's very, very short. It's the shortest part of the manual, I think. But he also says this is a very good weapon. It's an important weapon. And he says that you can use all the guards that you use with the sword. He said, we aptly take the gauge of the sword in the translation. In other words, the guards, techniques, the way you use the sword, especially two-handed sword, in my experience, you can use the spear for, with slight modification, of course. And he also doesn't mention anything about the footwork. And if you look at the description, it's the same footwork as he used in the rest of the manual, because why describe it again? And the footwork is, you can see my feet. It's a lot of passing steps and turning, or what he calls volta. I don't have time to go into that as well, but I open my attack, I do a passing step to get the reach. And off a step slightly off line with a turn. I turn on my ball of the feet. It's very important to have your weight at the ball of your feet, not on the heel. So step slightly off line and turn, or something is just turning on the place where you're standing. There's this the stable turn and the that's what I want to be into it, but passing steps and turns on the ball of your feet, or stand still and turn on the ball of your feet. That's the important part of the footwork. So the guards, as I said, it's 6 guards, 1 attack, which is to thrust, different kinds of thrusts, and the counter attack, which we'll come back later to, but this when you use the end of the spear. But the one guard I will mention that you probably find yourself in when you're using a spear, it's not described in the spear chapter, but we always end up in it sometimes. And this guard, well, if you use a 200 sword, you recognize it. If you use a rapier, probably recognize this guard. He actually describes in the X section, they call it Posta breva la serpentia, the shortened serpent. I think it's shortened. My 15th century Italian is a little bit rusty, or non-existent. So when we do the thrust, we end up here, but it doesn't describe that you will use this as a guard or a post, as you call it, but you will end up here. But probably won't stay in it, I will guess. That's my experience. Of course, if you stand on a distance just resting and want to present some kind of threats, of course, it's threatening seeing a fencer point a spear against me. But well, anyway, that's one of the guards you will probably end up in. And he has 6 guards, but it's basically 3 guards on each side that mirror each other. So 3 on the right, 3 on the left, and it's basically the same, but adapted for the different side. And he changed his grip on the spear. The guards on your right side, then you have the right. This is the right hand, yeah. Right hand up. If you change the other side, you have left side, you have the left hand up. So you change in between. And there are, when you start using them, you will notice why you do that. So you have to train with both your hands on the spear at top. The first one, I will first show you the guards slowly, and show a guard, then I show how it will be used. The king will try to kill me, and then the end, what I will kill him, and then the end he will show you how he will kill me anyway, but we'll do it in the end. And of course, this is a quick go through of the different guards. If you have any questions, we'll come back to it, and you will scream and see it starting to get some more comments. Yes, the first guard, I will start with the guard on the right side. So if you have a broomstick and plenty of room, you can try standing up now and watch the ceiling or furniture or stuff like that. Environment, your dog or whatever. First guard, I will start with the first guard on the right side. So right hand up, left hand down. You will see that we change which part of the spear you're holding. And we will start with the guard called full iron bay, porta di ferro. I want to check that you do this in proper order. And he will hold it with right hand up, right hand down, right foot back, and have that means left foot front, forward. He will hold it so more or less in the middle, So the end of the spear is not at the ground, but it covers your knee, stuff like that. And the hand at more or less shoulder height. And remember, have your shoulders down, not up. Be relaxing your body. That's always when a fence. So look like this. And this is very open guard, but this is the full iron gate. I can protect all my body. I can of course just move the spear side to side and I cover all my body if need be. So whatever you throw at me, I can parry. But then if I want to be able to not only parry but also kill the opponent. See if we have more picture. My openings are of course on my left side because I don't have a spear there. So if you do this slowly, you will attack me. First you will, yeah, I will
Make sure that the attack will actually hit if he doesn't parry.
Yeah. And then I step slightly forward. Remember this turning of the body and the foot. And I take control of his spear, push it to the side, and thrust. Of course, if he were farther away, I can use parry with upper part of my spear as well. And remember, don't beat too long to the side, because I want to have the tip of my spear towards his face, upper part of the body, because I'm controlling his spear. From here, I'm pushing it to the side. He can't do anything to parry at this moment if I push it to the side. And in my experience, a little bit on top of it, the strong position, if you're experienced on this. Because from here, it's closer to my hands than his hand. If you try to push it to the side, I'm stronger because it's close to my hand. Like when you use a rapier, you use a two-handed sword. Lots of this, if you are experienced fence, which all of you are, more or less, the principles are the same. It's a weapon. Weapon behaves similar way. But that was from the full iron gate, or the Faro. Of course, we have a half iron gate, or the Faro Massa. And it's similar, but then I have room for it. The spear to the side and pointing downwards. Slightly forward in the picture, but still right foot back, right hand on the top, left on the back of the spear, left foot forward. So, and see, I'm very open. Well, seem to be anyway. This I do basically the same. He kills me. Yeah. No, we don't. We can do it again. Stretch out. I'm controlling his spear. But the same principle again. Slightly step offline a little bit. With a turn on my feet. Step forward and turn the back foot, of course. Then we have the third one, which I will admit I had a little bit problems in the beginning with. It's called the positive fenestre, right window. Quite similar to the German called Ox. Yeah. If you use the German longsword system, it's the same position with your foot, the feet. But the hands are at the end of the spear, not total at the end, but close to the end of the spear. And this one I actually pointing towards the opponent. I have my hand like this. I don't really resting on my shoulder. I can rest a little bit on my upper arm, shoulder if I want to, but up here, pointing towards the opponent. And from here, it's not exactly the same what I do, but if he attacks me, give me under. What I do here is I still step outside to the side. It's more the step, but they're still controlling the attacking spear. Repeat it. I won't hit him in the head at the moment since they don't have a mask. So it's still the same footwork. It's still push your spear forward in attack.
All of these, it's very important that I actually aim for him, not aiming to the side or trying to deliberately miss. I need to actually aim at my opponent, otherwise it doesn't work. And in real sparring, you would aim at your opponent.
Yes. As always in practice, you have to do a dedicated attack. Of course, you can do it slowly, as we're doing it now. Of course, not with full force, but they have to be a dedicated, real attack. Otherwise, this won't work. And as you can see, all of this attack he describes should end up in the face or the chest area. He doesn't describe attack to your leg or your arm as a main attack area anyway. It's to the head, to the chest. But in our experience, the leg is, if someone doesn't have a good footwork, if they're very heavy on your feet, an attack on the opponent's leg is very good. But of course, all of you have good footwork, so we can hit you in your leg.
The arms are a good area to aim for if you have the precision. It's quite narrow compared to the body, hopefully.
Yeah, really. So that was the right side. Then we do the left side. That's that. Then you change grip. All this on the right side was right hand up, left hand down. Now we change side. And it's left hand up, right hand down. And it's also 3 guards, 3 postas. The first one is called Vårstads, then the Zingare. And this one is a little special because I hold, like in the full iron gate, hold the spear to the side and upwards. But I have my hands a little bit, not totally together, but fairly close together. I have my right hand at, well, somewhere here, at hip level, more or less. The other one's at shoulder leg height, like this. But I'm also having my right foot towards my opponent. But I'm looking at him. It maybe feels a little bit strange. So almost turn my back against my opponent. But how it's described to be used is, if I stand like this, I can attack. I can just like with the porta to the porta de ferro, just parry all kinds of attack, whatever he throws at me, I can parry. Like this. So, but quite a small movement. But also, once again, it's this step to the side, control the opponent's spear, push it to the side, and hit him in the face. I can do this in a full turn. For example, like this, big attacks. Again. Or I can just try to step more to the side, so it miss, take attack. But I still want to control his spear. And I can do it, if I remember this correctly, attacks, I step backwards with my front foot. This is if he was really stepping in. So if you do, I really know this, rush into attack. I step backwards instead. So that was the horse class.
We have a question here.
Yes.
In the ox guard, why do you keep your hands so close together?
It's easier when I have to, if I have on the right side, my right hand up, it's harder to do the turn First of all, I have to have it on the ends. I can just, I can see myself in the picture here. So I have up here, I have to have it close to the end because otherwise I can't do the switch. And to be able to do a smooth transition like this, I have to have my other hand higher up. Then I have to push it upwards and then down. It's a faster, smoother transition. Like this. If I have my right hand up, it will, first of all, it's very, well, I'm not that flexible, I can stand like this smoothly, and I'm trying to turn it. I can't push further away, so I have to put it up and then down, and then I miss. So here I can just do it, still have my opponent towards my opponent. Up here I have to do it like this, open for a while. That's my theory anyway. Was that an answer to the question?
He seems to be wanting to show something.
I want to show something.
We just play, continue.
Yeah. Well, but the short answer is that way it shows in the manual. He has the hands really close together. But that's why I think you have the hands close together, because it's a faster, smoother transition. So where were we? Where did the boards pass? Yeah, positive cross, true cross. Similar again. Remember that. So left hand up. We are the second one on the left hand side. The hands are once again turn my back to my opponent. And I have my hand more or less at the middle of the spear, slightly in the bottom half, but more or less in the middle. And I have my hand quite close, hip wide, more or less, like this. And I have my back towards my opponent again. But looking at him, and when he attacks me, you can attack me. Kills me. And I do the same footwork as before. Either a step around, go to me. This one actually, in at least one of the words in the manual, describes specifically that you should step away from your opponent. So the attacks will step away from him. So it's the basic same footwork. Attack again. I was too slow. You turn on the ball of your feet, make a passing step, push his spear to the side. Yes. And then we have one more left. One more left on the left side. The left window. Posto di finestre, or like an ox guard. And once again, left hand up. Once again, the hands to the close to the end, not together, but close to the end of the spear. I point it backwards towards my opponent, like this. So I can rest it on my shoulder if I want to, or upper arm, whatever is you like. Point towards your opponent, and if you attack me, go first. So, once again. A step off line from his attack, control this spear, and hit him, preferably in the face. Just not putting in the shoulder, but I will show you. So it's the same movement again. But I have my hands up here. They are crossed. Notice, my hands are crossed. But when I do the turn, I move them. So they're not crossed anymore. So, that was actually the 6 basic postas, the 6 basic guard with the basic attacks from them. And as you notice, every one of these are waiting for the opponents to do the attack. But of course, I can also take control. There's some opponent just standing there waiting for me to kill him, so I can use the same attacks.
And most likely these are, while you're sparring, these are positions you transition through, which means that you know what happens, what you can do when you're in this position. Or if your back is towards your opponent, they attack you, you know what to do.
Yeah. But for example, he doesn't describe this guard, but you end up with when you do the thrust. So you will pass through that positions as well. But if, for example, His Majesty stays, put himself in this kind of guard, I can of course just use, for example, if I stand here, do this movement, and I kill him. It's the same movement. Step to the side. Push his spear to the side a bit. But that was the way of me killing His Majesty. But of course, he must end up with His Majesty killing me. Because otherwise it would be straight. And he describes one counter attack when you use the end of your spear, which of course are metal caps. You have some kind of dangerous metal spike or cap or something that you can use to kill your opponent. Which way you want to do it? So, if I start with the first guard, the full iron gate, he attacks me. I will kill you. He just turn his spear around, push mine to the side, and this instantly you have to use a step as well to get close enough to
Pop the nose.
pop nose. Or as we do in SCA, just
Show the end of the spear, and I think the term is, I can't remember the exact word now. What the rule said. Knock.
Knock.
Is,
well,
I think it is.
if someone shows me the end of the spear and says, haha, I will take it as well. So we can repeat it again. Do we see it? Or should we switch sides or see better? We can switch. So he attacks. I take control. He controls my spear, push it to the side, take a step forward, and hits me in the face.
And what I do is simply, if we,
Really slowly.
and he makes the counter, what I do is I simply guide his spear to the side. And as you can see, the head of his spear is closer to my hands, which makes me stronger, and I guide it to the side.
Yeah.
If you do this, be very careful. If he were to charge in when I'm turning it, the spear, even if I don't try to hit him, I can actually happen to hit him. So do this with a lot of control. It's a legal move to show the end of the spear. It's not a legal move to hit your opponent with a rattan stick in fencing.
Let's say I'm happy that I have a very sturdy fencing mask with extra padding on the outer side as well. But in real fight, of course, if I wore an open helmet, this kind of side slap would kill me, but it would probably take me off balance at least. So it's in real fight, a good, proper way to take control of the fight.
You could daze the opponent and whatnot, put them off balance.
But on the SCA fencing field,
We want to be friends afterwards.
but we use it many times in real sparring. It works excellent.
Safety precaution, when I do it, turn it around, be prepared to slide it closer to you to avoid hitting your opponent or stopping. Having both hands and be able to slide gives you a lot of control.
So that was the ancient fencing master Fiore's Spear. This was the basic class of his spear use. But I will, if someone wants to play with spear and want to look into manuals, I really encourage you to look into Fiore. And as you can see, this is the Italian name for the guards. The ones used to the German longsword guards, you can translate most of them to, like, for example, Finestris, ox, and so forth. So, and there are spears in the German, some of the German manuals as well, which are similar described.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Spear is a spear is a spear.
Yeah, oh, there's different, some difference in between them, but the basic is the same.
Yep.
So we have.
Do we have any questions?
Have any questions so far? I think we have half an hour left of this class plan. We have a little bit more if you have time for it, but no questions so far. Oh, yeah. Hand, as I said, you will hit your hands together. It won't break your fingers. It won't really hurt you that much, but
the most common thing, as you see when we back the spears to the side, if you get your fingers in between the spears when you throw them to the side, that is the most painful thing we've come across. And it stings, it hurts for some minutes. We haven't been able to break any fingers. It just hurts, it stings. You get numb for a little while. So and that is with just regular fencing gloves. Using something padded works like a charm.
Yeah, as I said, I recommend padded gloves. I didn't normally use them when we started playing with spears because I want to have the full flexibility, full movement of the hand. But the worst, then I got a blue nail. I think that was the worst. That hurt a little bit in my hand. So, and that was when we starting to use them. Now, if I will go a proper tourney, I will probably have padded gloves just to be sure. But we haven't hurt each other.
No.
In general, when we did stupid things, we didn't know what we should do, we'd start sparring a little bit too early. We haven't hurt each other.
No.
A couple of bruises, but this is a martial art, so that you can expect. And we didn't wear any padding except for the natural padding. So it works really, really, really well, I should say. So we have almost half an hour left. As I said, we could show you a little bit how you used other weapons against spear. As I said before, we have long reach, but that's basically what we have against another weapon. Because yes, the thrust is almost as fast as a thrust with the other weapon. But I have, if the opponent knows what he's doing, I have one thrust, then I basically toast. I'm dead. If I have an opponent know what he's doing. I have a weapon.
The notion that you should get past your opponent's thrusting tip, it's much more evident here. If my opponent's thrusting tip is behind me and he or she missed, I'm safe. If my thrusting tip is between me and my opponent at that instance, the only person that can win is me.
But I have to remember, since the spear is a two-handed weapon, if I have a one-handed weapon, I am most of the time weaker. It's hard to end up in a strong position. If I use a two-handed sword, it's another thing. But if I use, for example, a rapier. But if you survive the first attack, the first thrust, you should win. If your opponent not are really, really fast on his or her feet and can run away and reset the fight again.
Yep.
So, for example, the basic principle are, if I have a rapier, I won't have a spear. On this, he can attack me, I can attack him. But if he attacks me, I'm able to parry. I'm holding his spear here. He has two hands, but I can at least control his spear. He can't attack me. So step in, try to kill him. Well, it's simple when described like this. You have to survive the first attack. I know it, he knows it. So it's all back to the mind game. And I can parry his thrust. Thrust.
As you saw, he parries with the strong part of his blade.
Close to my hand, the edge.
And he guides my spear to the side. He doesn't try to meet it.
Like this. Then he can push through. So just wait for it with the edge, hold the strong part of the blade. But then I have, as I think Gigante describes it, for the ball of heart, I have to run into close to my opponent. I parry, I just really rush into him because he knows he has to run away.
Yep.
Because I'm controlling his blade.
The thing I should have by now is a dagger that I can pull.
And actually, it's like we planned this. Gigante in his second book described that you can and should be able to beat a man armed with a spear when you only have a dagger if you are bold of heart.
Before we move on, we have a question here if you are actually allowed to grab the opponent's spear.
Yep. Grab, push to the side. It's like with all weapons we have. I don't need to grab it, by the way. I can just, if you control it like we do control blade as well.
You can treat it as a normal blade. You're not allowed to start wrestling with it or start to pull on it.
So I don't even need to grab it really, because when I'm very rustling, I don't grab it. I just place my hand.
He's in the way.
His way. Well, of course, he can move around, but until he's done it, I can kill him.
But my thrusting tip is still behind it.
So, yes, at the moment we're allowed to grab it. If you're not allowed to grab it, you can control it in a way.
You can grab it, don't wrestle with it. So if he grabs the spear and I start pulling on it, let go of it. Regardless of what the rule says, you can hurt yourself. If I, with both hands, starts pulling on it and he holds on to it, he can damage his joint. So just let go.
But that time isn't time enough. The control rules. But at the moment you're allowed to grab it. If you're not allowed to grab it in the end of the rules, you can control it in a way. It's not really matters. But as Gigante says, you should be able to survive with only a dagger against a spear. And this is basically the same thing. He says actually that you should first let him attack you once. I parry, step a little bit backwards, and then again. So he really have to commit himself. Then I take control. Control is, and this is what Gigante said, control is blade and fall. Kill him in whatever proper way you like. Thrust, cut, like, go for a nice cup of tea. But as he said, it's for the bold of heart, because, well, the distance difference is really big. And that's probably why it says parry one thrust first. So the one, you really have to dedicate him really, really good.
So because if I'm still centered, I don't properly commit.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get control, even if I only want to have my hand over it.
So, but when I make a thrust and lean forward, this takes time to get back.
Yes. So, and this basically with all kinds of shorter weapons, again, this long spear, you have to step in, take the first thrust, and then control. And remember, he's two-handed, he's strong, but if I take the leverage close to his tip, I can at least control his spear, so it won't be a danger, immediate danger. You have to move it around.
And actually, a soft parry works wonders against the spear.
Yeah, I have a soft parry on the tip of the spear. It's really, really annoying.
It sort of gets sticky, and the spear, it doesn't get stuck as such, but it takes 2-3 seconds before you get it loose, and 2-3 seconds in a sparring match, that's eons of time.
Oh yeah, you should be dead and buried by then.
Yep.
Or so.
We have another question here, but I'm not really sure how to phrase it. Would you like to finish that question, Peter?
The rook and the flick interest. Well, yeah, kind of. If you look up his in his longsword part, he has similar things. Or Brynolf is actually even better than me and Fiore's longswords part, but he has similar things in the longsword manual, so you should probably.
I don't actually remember the term, but if I understand the question correctly, I believe he has something similar, but I need to look it up.
Yeah. It was a while since I read the longsword part of it, actually, for that, but he has similar things. We have actually a very special one. On the more, well, not stupid, but interesting. Gigante has, as I said, how you beat a spear with a dagger, and Fabri has a way to beat a spear with a rapier, which are interesting. You take your normal rapier, turn it upside down, take hold of it, also change the grip up here a little bit, so you hold it more or less on the pommel. And now he says you can parry everything and use that to get up close, basically. So whatever he thrusts towards me, I can parry, and I should be able to take control and get in. I must admit, I not really got this to work in full sparring. I probably had trained not enough. But the principle, I hold my rapier in front of me. I'm left-handed, so I have it at my left knee, but if I switch side, right hand up, as if I was right-handed, covers from knee to, well, basically head, and parry side to side. Just to parry, the attack, and get up close. It's his principle. But I haven't get it to work, well, not against a fairly experienced spear fighter like Majesty. But I probably should train a little bit more. It should be fun. But that's Fabri's way of defeating a spear. But he was the principle: parry, get up close, then kill your opponent. That's his idea, anyway. So, actually, I think that's what we have to. But yeah,
20 minutes left.
I have a plan for 15 to 20 minutes question and discussion. So I think that's planned it very well. Do you have any questions? Opposing opinions? Because this is new. Well, we played with it a couple of years, but we're not that many people that play with spear. Not in SCA or other places that I can reach and train with people, to be honest.
How about smashing each other's hands? It feels like that is something you do, because you do all these flips with a spear to push the other spear away, so you don't hurt your hands in it.
Do you mean that I intentionally smash each other's hand in it?
Even if you just press it, and I mean, if you do a flip or something like that, that you push his spear away. I mean, that could be quite powerful sometimes. Rattan
Yes.
is easier for the hands, but it's still.
That's why I have the padded gloves, or I even use my heavy fighting gloves, which
That feels like the right choice.
the problem there is that they protect a little bit too well, which means that I need to communicate with my sparring partner if it was a thrust to the hands or not, because they protect so well. So they, finding the proper protection for your hands is important. Normally, if you just have sort of padded gloves with a bit of thick leather on top, that usually is enough, because you don't want to hit your spear too hard against your opponent's spear, because if I do and I miss, if I try to beat his spear away and he just lifts it up and it was too hard, my spear is far out of the way. That is the 1 arm's length, which is about this much.
Yeah.
So
And then I don't have that really.
and then I can come back quickly.
Yeah.
So yes, it could be quite hard hits, and as I said, you can. It's like closing or slamming your door on your fingers, sort of. Do you want some protection for your hands above normal fencing gloves?
But he doesn't describe an attacks against the hands in the spear section. But then again, he doesn't describe that much. He said just use it as all other weapons. But here we have some special applications of it. But then again, of course, if I am able to hit up my opponent's hand, and he has to only have two-handed weapons,
yeah,
it's a little bit hard to continue fighting in a good way. But it doesn't describe any attacks. Yes, you should have some kind of hand protection for your own sake. As I said, I was a little bit stupid or confident or something like that, and didn't use it in the beginning. Still don't that much when we just training. But some kind of padded gloves is a good idea. And so for this one have worked well. There's only padding on the fingers.
Would also recommend you could build what we call finger savers out of sort of a plastic material that you heat up.
You can actually buy pre-made finger saver, but then you don't fit your as exactly as your.
Because you want the dexterity as well as the protection. So there's finding the proper compromise.
So this kind of plastic finger saves on the tip of finger is actually a really good idea.
With that, you get away with a lot.
But so, any more questions? So, I will hope someday when we can meet out in the field, whatever event it will be, if it will be hopefully this summer, I hope, I will happily bring my spears if I'm able and hold more classes, more practical classes of the spear use, and then show how you should use them. Let you spar, try to kill me with them. Would love that. I would love to see more spears out in the field because I think it adds to it, both in the tourneys and in the melee. Not every tourney, not every melee, but it's a different kind of weapon that changes the game a little bit. It's like every other kind of weapon. It's fun in the right scenarios, and I would love to see more of them in the fencing. So, and if everyone has any questions that come up to later, just send me a message, email me. You can. The one of you who plays the game of Facebook, I'm at Facebook as well. So you can email me. My mail is on the website for this event. If you want to help to find where you can buy this stuff, email me, or how you build it, or train everything. Just please contact me. I would love to help you out with this. So if you don't have any more questions, I think this is the end of the class. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So